as I tell the narrative that eternally altered my life. I am here today with a joyful heart. Kamal Hassan is my name. I'm 25 years old and presently reside in Amsterdam, Netherlands. However, I would want to transport you back in time to Amman, Jordan, where I was born and reared with my parents. Amman is a bustling city with crowded streets, vendors offering grilled meat, fresh bread and spices, and mosques resounding 5 times a day with the call to prayer. I could hear the neighbors laughing or bickering late at night in our tiny flat, in a working-class area since the walls were so thin. Coffee and dust were the constant scents in the air. As my mother prepared breakfast in the mornings, I could hear the clatter of pans. Typically, the day begins with strong tea, bread, cheese, and olives. Since I am the only kid, my parents had high expectations for me. In order to earn enough money for us, my 52-year-old father, Hassan, a cab driver, put in a lot of overtime navigating Amman's congested streets. I was occasionally afraid of him because he is a severe man with a loud voice and a short fuse. He would return home exhausted, his shirt smeared with perspiration, and utter, "You must improve as a Muslim, Kamal. Work hard in your studies. Make us proud." He hoped that I would become an engineer, do well in my career, and demonstrate to our community that the Hassan family was a decent one. However, his remarks made me feel as though I were carrying a tremendous burden. I was constantly afraid of failing him and of not measuring up. Fatima, my mother, is 42. A good woman, she devoted her days to cleaning, cooking, and praying for me. With a gentle voice, she would call me to the dawn prayer and say, "Kamala, come pray with us." She would notice how quiet I had become and glance at me with concern in her eyes. "Are you all right, Kamala?" With her hands occupied kneading bread dough, she would inquire. Nodding, I would respond, "Yes, Mama." However, I wasn't feeling well. I was afraid to be honest with her that I was internally empty, that I wasn't sure I still believed, and that I wasn't sure whether Allah was pleased with me. I studied engineering at the university, but it was really challenging. I suffered from anxiety and was constantly concerned about my grades, failing and disappointing my parents. My heart would race as I lay in my tiny bed at night and stared at the cracked ceiling. I would ask Allah in prayer if I was doing sufficient, if He noticed me, if He gave a damn. However, I never received a response, just a thick quiet that only served to increase my sense of isolation. I used to wonder whether I was the only one who felt this way when I heard my mother muttering her prayers and my father snoozing in the adjacent room. I didn't fit in at the university. Faith didn't matter to some kids. They would forgo prayers in order to spend time in cafes laughing about ladies and smoking shisha. Others were highly critical, criticizing me for failing to pray on time or forgetting a sunnah. I was once spotted eating during Ramadan by a man named Khaled. I was so anxious about an exam that I had forgotten it was a fasting day. "Kamal, you're a bad Muslim," he continued, giving me a frown. "For this you will answer to Allah." His remarks hurt, and I was embarrassed. I started keeping to myself and avoiding others, even if I didn't mean to make a mistake, out of fear of being judged. Yusuf, my best friend, was a 24-year-old carefree man who didn't take religion seriously. He was a business student who was constantly making jokes and attempting to make me laugh. He would advise, "Kamal, calm down," while we sat on the steps outside the engineering building and shared a bottle of Coke. "You worry too much. Allah want to condemn you to hell for failing to say a single prayer." His remarks didn't make me smile. I didn't know how, but I wanted to feel at peace and near God. Sometimes Yusuf would take me to the market, where we would get inexpensive falafel sandwiches and see the street vendors negotiating with patrons. I only felt a little lighter during such times, but the weight always returned. I once felt so anxious in class that I was unable to concentrate. While my professor was discussing structural design, I was preoccupied with thoughts of my mother's anxious expressions, my own uncertainties, and my father's expectations. Debra saw a girl in my class. She was shy, 22, and always wore a little crucifix necklace. Although some kids made fun of her behind her back and called her an outsider because she was Christian, which was uncommon in Jordan, she was always nice to me. "Kamal, you look upset," she murmured softly as she approached me after class. "Your heart is visible to God." You know, I didn't understand what she said. We were instructed to obey the law in Islam, donate to charity, fast, pray, and avoid talking about hearts. Her words stuck with me, even after I muttered thanks and turned to leave, similar to a seed sown in my brain. I had trouble sleeping that night. I couldn't stop thinking about Deborah's words. Taking out my phone, I searched for the concept online and typed "God sees the heart" into the search box. In the Bible, not the Quran, I came across a verse that stated, "The Lord looks at the heart." It piqued my interest and came from a book called 1 Samuel. I had never before read the Bible. I couldn't stop thinking about it, but my father would be furious if he knew I was even examining it. What if God was more concerned with my heart than with my behavior? What if faith was more than the doctrine I had been taught? I told myself I was being silly and pushed the thought away. I practiced Islam. I had to persevere, praying, learning, and making an effort to be decent. However, I secretly felt that I was crumbling and that I couldn't bear this burden for much longer. Something that would completely alter my life was about to happen, even though I was unaware of it at the time. In 2024, a man had a scorching afternoon. A few weeks after Deborah's conversation with me, I was going home from college with a bag full of books and a worried head. The streets were congested, with cars and sellers yelling about their fresh produce, children pursuing a soccer ball while honking. Sweat was streaming down my back, and the air was heavy with heat. Since I was fasting for a religious holiday, one of the extra fasts my father promoted to please Allah, I hadn't eaten anything all day. In addition to forgetting to drink water because I was too busy preparing for an exam, the heat was making me feel lightheaded. I was thinking about my huge engineering class exam that was coming up the following day. Even after staying up late studying and pouring at my notes until my eyes burned, I still didn't feel prepared. I couldn't stop hearing my father's comments. "You must make us proud, Kamal." I believed that I was failing him, Allah, and everyone else. I reminded myself, "Just get home, Kamal," as my breathing became short and my chest felt constricted. "There, you can rest." However, my eyesight began to blur as I turned down a small street close to the market. I staggered and tried to hold onto a wall for support since my legs felt like jelly. I missed, and I was falling before I realized it. My head slammed into the pavement as I struck the ground hard. A snap sounded, and I felt a sharp pain. Around me, people began yelling, "Help him, make a call to ambulance." Beside me, a hijab-wearing woman knelt. She spoke in a panic. "He is not moving. Someone please assist." While a small boy hurried to seek water, a guy carrying a cart of oranges stopped and called for a doctor. Their voices were audible to me, yet they seemed distant, as if I were underwater. When I closed my eyes, everything turned black. I believed I was going to die, and I was terrified. I wasn't prepared to encounter Allah. I hadn't performed well enough. I hadn't prayed. I had my doubts. I accidentally ate during Ramadan the other day. This is it, I thought. I'm going to hell. I was no longer on the street when I opened my eyes. I was in a horrible, dark place. I had never seen this area before, but I knew immediately that it was hell. Smoke was heavy in the air. It burnt my throat with each inhalation, and was so thick that I could not breathe. I could feel the heat through my shoes. It felt like the earth was composed of fire. My heart raced with panic as I heard screams of pain all around me. Horrible, desperate screams. I was sickened by the stench of burning everywhere I looked, and I saw orange and red flames licking at the darkness in the distance. With my body trembling, I glanced around and noticed those in the flames were individuals I knew, people from my life. One of them was Hamza Ahmed, a severe Imam from my mosque, who insisted that we never question the rules, pray on time, and obey them. His garments were burning, his face contorted in agony, and he was shouting, "I was wrong, Kamal," he yelled when he spotted me. "I was not saved by the rules. I was not as good as I believed myself to be." He reached out to me, his hands black with burns, and his voice was filled with fear. "If you don't discover the truth, Kamal, you wind up here too." I covered my face with my hands as I staggered back, unwilling to believe it. Sheikh Ahmed had been quite strict and certain. How did he end himself here? Then I witnessed something that further crushed my heart. I could see myself burning in the flames. My face hurts a lot. I was yelling, "Peace never came to me. Peace never came to me." I was being eaten alive by my anxieties, uncertainties, and anxiety. Even here, I envisioned a future in which I continued to practice Islam and strive for excellence, but it was insufficient. I ended up in hell, where I will always be tormented and without hope or serenity. At my funeral, I ran into my parents with a grim expression on his face. My father stood at my grave and said, "He let us down. He wasn't adequate." With her hands on her face and her voice in a whisper, my mother was crying. I ought to have assisted him. I ought to have seen his suffering. Seeing them suffer and knowing that I had failed them made me feel so lost and alone. I collapsed to my knees as the heat burned my flesh and tears ran down my cheeks. "Allah, save me," I wailed. "Please come to my rescue." But I felt like I was drowning in panic as the screams became louder and the darkness grew darker. I reflected on all the times I had prayed, fasted, and attempted to abide by the rules. Why wasn't it sufficient? What brought me here? My life flashed before my eyes. Every moment I felt empty. Every hesitation, every missed prayer. I pictured myself sitting in my chamber, gazing up at the ceiling, my pulse pounding with nervousness, and never being able to find the tranquility I so desperately sought. This is my punishment, I thought. I will always be here. Then something occurred. A faint light, resembling a star in the dark sky, emerged in the distance. The flames surrounding me began to go out as it became brighter, driving the darkness away. As the screaming subsided, I sensed a non-burning warmth, like a cozy blanket. It was soft. With wide eyes, I gazed up and experienced a small glimmer of optimism in my chest. Even though I had no idea what was going to happen, I knew was something new that could perhaps save me from this nightmare. My heart was still racing with fear, and I was still in that blazing dark area. I could see myself burning in the flames and hear the cries of others around me. Everything was too much. I believed that I would never find peace and that I was lost forever. But then, like a wave, the darkness was pushed away by the brighter light in the distance. The shouts became softer until they were only a faint echo, and the flames surrounding me began to die out. I was able to breathe again after the air cleared. For the first time in that awful location, I felt safe since the light was warm rather than searing and encircled me like an embrace. As the light became closer, I noticed a man standing there. His face was full of serenity and love, and his clothing were as white as the sun. He was radiant. Despite the fact that I had never seen him before, I immediately recognized him. Jesus was the one. I shivered as I stared at him, feeling so insignificant and undeserving. I am a Muslim, I thought. This isn't possible. It is Allah, not Jesus, that I am meant to see. However, Jesus' voice was loud, yet kind, as if it could soothe a storm. "Kamal, I am the life, the truth, and the way," he declared. "I am the only way for anyone to approach the Father." I couldn't take my eyes off of him as his words rang in my heart like a lightning. He seemed to see every aspect of me. He still loved me despite my suffering, uncertainties, and anxieties. I could see Jesus' hands as he moved closer. My chest ached from the deep wounds where nails had formerly been. After revealing to me the spot where a spear had penetrated his side, he replied, "I died for you, Kamal, to give you peace and eternal life." I began to cry, tears running down my cheeks as I experienced a love I had never had before. I had never felt anything like that when I prayed to Ali. This love felt alive and real, as if it were supporting me. When Jesus took my hand, the shadowy area vanished entirely. We were in a lovely garden now, with soft green grass beneath my feet, a stream that glistened in the sunlight, and flowers flowering everywhere, red, yellow, and blue. The aroma of jasmine permeated the crisp air, and I could hear birds singing, and I wanted to listen to them all the time. Because they were so lovely, we were surrounded by warm golden sunshine, and I was feeling so secure, as if nothing could ever harm me. Jesus and I strolled through the garden together. In the distance, I saw a glimpse of a city gleaming like gold, its gates glistening like pearls. He stated, "This is heaven, Kamal, where there's no fear, no pain, only joy." There, I observed folks laughing and smiling, with serene expressions on their faces. My grandfather, a good man who passed away when I was little, was one of them. When my parents weren't looking, he would seat me on his lap, tell me stories about his early years, and give me candy. He was a decent Muslim, in my opinion, yet Jesus claimed he found me before he died. Kamal secretly trusted in me, and now he will always be by my side. My grandfather grinned broadly as he gazed at me. I was both delighted and perplexed when he waved. How is this possible? I had never met my Christian grandfather. Jesus then revealed to me something else that broke my heart. "Look at your life, Kamal," he continued. "Every time I prayed, fasted, and made an effort to adhere to Islamic law, I saw myself kneeling on my prayer mat, repeating things I had committed to memory since I was a kid. Despite my head hurting and my stomach rumbling, I pictured myself fasting during Ramadan because I believed it would please Allah. According to Jesus, however, look closer. I realized that despite doing all of those things, I was still hollow on the inside. My prayers seemed like meaningless words. I treated my fasting as a chore. I never experienced serenity or a sense of intimacy with God. Am I good enough? I asked myself as I lay in bed at night, my heart pounding with nervousness. Is Allah observing me? But there was stillness, no response. "Kamal, you cannot be saved by your works," Jesus said. "They are unable to close the distance between you and God. My grace alone can. The only path to real serenity is via me." I realized how lost I had become by my Islamic beliefs, constantly striving to be good enough but never feeling it. I observed the guidelines I had adhered to: 5 daily prayers, abstaining from meat, and making charitable contributions. However, they kept me ensnared in fear like a heavy chain around my heart. Jesus showed me how he died on the cross, how his love made it possible for me to be with God, and how his blood atoned for my sins. Knowing that he did it for me made me feel both cherished and humiliated. Jesus then revealed to me 2 possibilities, and everything was altered by them. I continued to practice Islam in the first one, in an effort to merit entry to paradise. I noticed that I was aging, becoming more anxious, and having a lot of doubts. I witnessed my own breakdown once more, this time permanently, and I found myself back in hell, where I was tormented and my soul burned. "He wasn't good enough," my father said, standing beside my grave with a harsh look when I saw my parents at my funeral. "He let us down." With her hands on her face, my mother was crying and whispering, "I should have helped him." Seeing them in that state shattered my heart. To know that I would disappoint them, to realize I had never been at ease. Jesus then revealed a different future to me. I saw my peaceful face as I followed him. No more fear, no more anxiety. I imagined myself reading the Bible in a peaceful environment while grinning and feeling joyful. I imagined myself sitting at our little kitchen table with my parents, talking about Jesus, assisting them and showing them love. My father's stern expression softened, and I saw it. There's hope in my mother's anxious eyes. At the university, I pictured myself sharing Jesus with other students, and as they experienced the same calm that I had, Their eyes lit up. I observed a group of individuals listening, including Christians and Muslims. Some of them were crying as I told them my tale, while others were praying to Jesus for the first time. Kamal, this is the life I want for you, Jesus continued. I adore your family. I adore your city. I want you to return and tell the truth. With tears running down my cheeks, I collapsed to my knees. But how, Jesus? Yelled. Ara cried. I asked. I'm a Muslim. My community, my family, they will despise me. They'll accuse me of betraying them. I had never felt such strength before, like a fire in my breast, till Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. But it was a good fire, one that inspired me. Kamal, it won't be easy, he remarked. They will reject you because they believe you to be a traitor. Some will even make an effort to harm you. I'll be with you, though. I'll grant you the tranquility you've been seeking. Then he said something that will always stick in my memory. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I felt hopeful after hearing his comments, as if a burden had been removed. For the first time in years, I felt liberated and able to breathe. With my heart full, I turned to face him and said, Jesus, I'll follow you. I desire this tranquility. This is the life I want. When he grinned, the light surrounding us brightened even more, enveloping me in warmth. I took one more look at the creek and the garden. I knew I would never forget this area as it sparkled and the flowers swayed in a light breeze. Come back, Kamal, Jesus said, in the dark. Be my light. I nodded, willing to follow his instructions, even if it meant losing everything I had ever known. Hell was something I had witnessed. Heaven had appeared to me. I had also witnessed the reality. I was prepared to follow Jesus at all costs, since he was the only path. The sound of beeping devices filled the air when I awoke in a hospital room in Agai. My body felt weak and my head ached, as if I had been asleep for days. My mother, Fatima, was sitting beside my bed as I opened my eyes, straining at the bright lights. She was gripping my hand so tightly that it was a little painful, and her face was pale and her eyes were red from crying. Kamal, you're awake, she exclaimed as she watched me awaken. Oh, thank God. She began to cry once more, but these were tears of joy, her hands shaking. She bent down and planted a kiss on my forehead. My head spun when I attempted to sit up, so I fell back down. What happened, Mama? My voice asked. She said, wiping her eyes. Kamal, you passed out in the street. There was blood all over your head from the force of your blow. Some individuals, they brought you here after you called for an ambulance. You were unconscious for hours, according to the physicians. They feared you would not awaken. Kamal, it's a miracle, a miracle. With my pulse pounding, I turned to face her and exclaimed, Jesus, save me, Mama. Her hand remained on mine as she froze, her eyes wide. Her voice trembled as she said, What do you mean, Kamal? When you fell, you were calling for Allah. According to what I overheard, you were mumbling his name. With a dry throat, I inhaled deeply and began to tell her everything. I described to her how my worry was killing me and how I could see myself burning in hell. I informed her about our mosque's Imam, Hamza Ahmed, who yelled that the regulations didn't protect him. I explained to her how Jesus came to me, showed me his wounds, transported me to paradise, and revealed to me my grandfather, who had secretly believed in him. I explained to her how Jesus revealed to me the hollowness of my Islamic beliefs, how he showed me two futures, and how my fasting and prayers never brought me serenity, one where I followed him and found peace, and another where I ended up in hell. Mama, Jesus told me that he is the only way, I said. He instructed me to share the truth. With a mixture of wonder and terror on her face, my mother listened. As if she were worried that someone would hear us, she kept her eyes on the door. Kamal, be careful, she said once I was done. This won't make sense to your dad. He will be furious, and you will be labeled an apostate by the folks at the mosque. Here, do you understand what that means? Despite having a heavy heart, I nodded and experienced a calmness in my chest that I had never experienced before. Jesus promised to be with me, and I knew he was. I know, Mama, I answered, but I can't keep this to myself. That's the reality. At that moment, Hassan, my father, entered the room. He had been in the corridor conversing with the doctor when he overheard my final statement. His eyes narrowed in rage and his cheeks flushed. He yelled, "What is this nonsense, Kamal?" loud enough for the nurse outside to look in. "Jesus, There, I recognized myself. Jesus appeared to me. He revealed the truth to me. The only path to peace is via him. I jumped when my father banged his hand on the wall. "It's just that you're unwell," he shouted. "You're talking weird after hitting your head." "You're a Muslim, Kamal. We brought you up as an Islamist. Put an end to this conversation or you will embarrass our family." With her hands on her face, my mother began to cry and beg us to stop fighting. "Hassan, please, he just woke up. Give him some rest," she said. However, my father pointed at me in a chilly, quiet voice. "Kamal, you'd better ignore this bullshit. I refuse to let you destroy us." My mother and I were left in solitude as he hurried away. A few days after leaving the hospital, I returned to our tiny Imam apartment. Now everything felt different. The air felt heavier, the walls closer. I began using my phone to read the Bible while keeping my parents from seeing. At night, I would shut my door, sit on my bed, and read about Jesus, his teachings, his love, and his miracles. I read about how Jesus died on the cross for me, how he pardoned sinners, and how he healed the sick. Every word seemed to be speaking directly to my heart and filling the void inside of me. I would humbly pray to Jesus, pleading with him for support and courage. I had the impression that he was always by my side, like a friend. But I needed to exercise caution. My dad was keeping an eye on me and noting any changes. I ceased attending the mosque, claiming that I was too weary from studying. Yet he didn't think I was telling the truth. "Kamal, what's wrong with you?" he would ask. "You have changed. We used to pray together. Now, accompany me to the mosque." "You're in your room all the time," I would murmur as I looked down, my hands sweating. "Papa, I'm just busy." However, he would fix his intense gaze on me as if he were aware that I was concealing something. Even my mother noticed, but she kept quiet about it, and I could tell she was afraid for me, since she was merely watching me with those anxious eyes while her hands were busy sewing or cooking. I made the decision to meet with my Christian classmate Deborah one day to discuss everything. I emailed her to ask if we could meet at a park close to the university. It's a peaceful spot with green grass, benches, and swings for kids. I arrived early and saw some youngsters kicking a soccer ball about while perched on a bench. When Deborah saw me, she smiled and came over, her little cross necklace gleaming in the sunlight. She said, "Kamal, you look better," as she sat beside me. I filled her in on everything, including how Jesus summoned me, my collapse, my near-death experience, and my vision of hell. I told her that although I wanted to follow him, I was afraid of what my community and family would think. "Take action. Kamal, that's amazing," she murmured, her eyes brightening. "Jesus called me, and he called you too. It was difficult for me to become a Christian 2 years ago. Jesus gave me strength, and he will give you strength as well. My family didn't talk to me for months." She took a little Bible from her bag, which I could conceal in my rucksack. "Keep reading this," she said, "and Kamal, pray. Jesus will lead the road for you." I thanked her, because I felt like I had a trustworthy friend who understood. At home, things became more difficult. With a strong voice, my father began to ask more questions. "Why do you no longer join us in prayer? Why are you so distinct in appearance?" He would observe me as if I were not his kid, but a complete stranger. I left my phone on my bed one evening while I was cleaning my face in the restroom. When my father entered my room to retrieve something, he noticed the screen of my phone. I had been using the Christian app to read the Bible, and it was open. His hands were quivering with rage as he took it up, and he was waiting for me when I returned. He held up my phone and yelled, "What is this? Come on, an app for Christians? Is Islam becoming less important to you? Would you like to destroy us?" I froze. My mouth is dry and my heart is racing. Despite my best efforts to remain composed, my voice was trembling. I said, "Papa, I discovered the truth. The path is Jesus." He made me feel at ease. I caught a glimpse of him. He showed me everything. "You're an apostate," my father said as he flung my phone to the ground, the screen breaking. "You will embarrass us. Everyone will speak. They'll claim we weren't good parents." With wide eyes, my mother rushed in and attempted to soothe him. "Please, Hassan, stop." She sobbed. "He's our son." However, he pushed her aside and pointed at me in a chilly, low voice. He walked out, slamming the door behind him, saying, "If you keep doing this, you're not my son." I sat on my bed with tears in my eyes and trembling hands. "Kamal, I don't understand this, but I love you," my mother muttered as she sat next to me, her hand on my shoulder. "Please exercise caution. The folks at the mosque are already conversing, and your father is furious." "I know, Mama," I whispered, looking at her with my heart broken. "But I can't turn away from Jesus. He is the real deal." With tears in her eyes, she nodded and gave me a strong hug, as if she couldn't bear to let go. A few days later, a significant event occurred that altered everything. I received an email from my institution as I was trying to study in my room. With shaking hands, I opened it and saw the words, "Kamal Hassan, congratulations. A full scholarship to study engineering at the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands has been granted to you." Excitement made my heart race. It was unbelievable to me. A full scholarship to study overseas? Something I've always wanted and that has the potential to transform my life. I interpret it as an indication from Jesus, an opportunity to deepen my faith, to be free, to follow him fearlessly, and to spread his love to others. Despite everything, I rushed to tell my folks in the hopes that they would be proud. I discovered them in the kitchen, with my father sipping tea at the table and my mother chopping vegetables. With a voice full of hope, I announced, "Mama, Papa, I got a scholarship to study in the Netherlands." The scholarship is full. My mother's smile briefly brightened before fading as she turned to face my father. My dad narrowed his brows and set down his cup. "Netherlands?" he stated in a chilly tone. "You're not going, Kamal. There, you'll lose faith. You'll lose your sense of Islam and start drinking and partying. You've already started to turn. Leave us alone with this Christian bullshit. I will not let you leave." With trembling hands, my mother grasped the knife and began to cry. "Please don't go, Kamal," she implored. "We will lose you entirely. You've changed so much already. I can't let you go." My voice broke as I attempted to explain. "Mama, Papa, I'll be all right. All I want is to learn to be who I'm supposed to be and to live out my religion. I have Jesus with me. I'm sure I'll be all right." However, with his chair scuffing the floor, my father got up and declared, "You are no longer my son if you go. To us, you will be dead." I felt tears burn my eyes as his words sliced through me like a scalpel. After that, things became even worse. That evening, my father went to the mosque and returned even more irate. "Kamal, people are talking," he said. "They are accusing you of becoming an apostate and straying away from Islam. The leaders of the mosque were informed. They are presently observing you. They claim that we were inadequate parents and that you are a disgrace." A shiver went down my back. It was hazardous to be considered an apostate in Jordan. You could be harmed by others. Your family can be humiliated if the authorities become involved. The following day, I met the leaders of the mosque when I passed by. They were standing outside, staring at me, whispering to each other. With a harsh face, one of them, an elderly man with a lengthy beard, pointed at me and spoke to the others. With my head lowered and my heart pounding, I quickly left. However, I was aware that I was no longer safe. With trembling hands, I returned to my chamber and prayed to Jesus. I muttered, "Please, Jesus, help me. I'd like to visit the Netherlands. I'd want to follow you. Give me the willpower to complete this task." His calm returned to me like a gentle hand on my shoulder, and I realized that at all costs I had to fight for this opportunity. I was unable to remain in Amman, not while the leaders of the mosque are looking on, not with my dad getting more and more irate. Even if it meant losing my family, I had to travel to the Netherlands. Jesus asked me to trust him, and I had to do so. My parents were very opposed to me studying in the Netherlands after I was awarded a scholarship. Hassan, my father, issued a directive to me. Either stay in Amman and put an end to this Christian bullshit, or go and distance yourself from the family. You are no longer my son if you leave, he said. To us, you will be dead. Every time I pondered his words, they pierced my heart more deeply like a knife. My Fatma, my mother, was sobbing and pleading with me to stay. She begged, "Kamal, please don't go," in a voice that broke. "You'll be lost. All we have is you. I'm afraid I'll lose you." I wanted to ease their suffering and make them joyful. I knew I couldn't remain, though. I had to follow Jesus because he had called me. I had to travel to the Netherlands in order to freely develop my religion and spread his love without fear. I made another attempt to speak with my father in the hopes that he would reconsider. He was sitting on our old couch in the living room, staring at the TV without actually watching it, when I spotted him. I took a seat on the other side of him. "Papa, please," I pleaded, my hands sweating. "I need this opportunity. I'll be all right, I swear. I won't go to the Netherlands to party or lose my identity. I'm going to pursue my studies, my beliefs, and my destiny." "Your faith?" he asked, his gaze tight on mine. "Is this Christian gibberish what you mean?" "For a falsehood, you're discarding everything we taught you and everything we hold dear. Kamal, you will embarrass us. The leaders of the mosque are already conversing. They claim that we brought up a traitor. You're choosing it over us if you go." Even though I was crying, I said, "Papa, you have my love. I have to do this, Mother. The truth is Jesus. I caught a glimpse of him. I'm unable to ignore him." "Then go. But don't come back," my father yelled, rising to his feet with a flushed expression. "You are no longer my son." I heard my mother crying in the kitchen as he left, slamming the door. Heartbroken, I walked to my room and began preparing a little suitcase. Just a few books, my broken phone, some clothes, and the little Bible Deborah gave me were all I had. Just in case someone noticed, I concealed the Bible inside a pair of socks. I was expecting that my father would reconsider, that he would come to my room and apologize to Kamal. "I cherish you. Visit the Netherlands. I still consider you my son." However, he didn't. With angry eyes, my mother entered and assisted me with packing. With trembling hands, she folded my clothing and murmured, "Kamal, I see something different in you, but I don't comprehend this Jesus you talk about. You appear lighter, as though your fear has subsided. I only wish for your safety." "I'll be safe, Mama," I replied as I gave her a tearful hug. "I have Jesus with me. I cherish you." Holding me close, she nodded and muttered, "I love you too, my son." On the day I headed to the airport, I made sure to wishing my parents would visit to bid me farewell. They didn't come out, so I waited outside our apartment with my bag on my shoulder and my eyes on the door. With a sorrowful heart, I walked alone to the bus stop and boarded a bus to the airport. There was mayhem, families cuddling, children sobbing, and individuals hurrying with bags. With trembling palms, I checked in and continued to scan the crowd for my parents' faces. I hoped my mother's words, "We're proud of you," would lighten my father's severe expression. However, they never arrived. Observing other families bid farewell in the crowded airport made me feel incredibly isolated. I prayed in a whisper to Jesus, "Help me, please. Give me courage." I knew I had to leave when I felt his calmness return, like a gentle hand on my heart. Leaving everything I knew behind, I boarded the airport with tears in my eyes and flew to the Netherlands. Everything seemed so fresh and different when I first arrived in Amsterdam. The streets were broad and lined with large buildings that gleamed in the sunlight, and the air was cold, a biting bite I wasn't used to. The speed at which people spoke English made it difficult for me to comprehend them. Additionally, I felt alienated in a weird world. To get to the university campus, I grabbed a taxi, a large area with red brick buildings, green grounds, and students everywhere. While some are joking with companions, others are hurrying to class. I discovered my dorm room, a tiny room with a desk, a bed, and a window overlooking the university. With my bag at my feet, I sat on the bed and experienced a mixture of freedom and terror. I didn't have to hide. For the first time, I could freely follow Jesus without worrying about the threats from the mosque head or my father's wrath. I began sitting at my desk, the door locked for safety, and reading my Bible every day. I felt really connected to Jesus after reading about his teachings, love, and promises. I came across praise music that moved me to tears, pastors' sermons, testimonies from people just like me, and Christian. Late at night, with my headphones on and tears in my eyes, I would watch them, feeling incredibly grateful for the serenity that Jesus provided. I once saw a video of a man who, like me, was formerly a Muslim. He described how he abandoned Liz, how he found peace, and how Jesus showed himself in a dream. He seemed to be narrating my tale, which filled me with optimism. I began to pray more and ask Jesus to teach me how to follow his instructions and to assist me in sharing his love. I never would have thought to join a Christian student organization in Jordan, but I did so at the university. A flyer on a bulletin board told me about them, and one evening, with my heart racing, I attended their meeting. They convened in a small room on campus with a table with coffee and cookies, and chairs arranged in a circle. A girl with a big smile said, "Hello, welcome," as soon as I entered. "My name is Sarah." I was anxious when I sat down. "My name is Kamal," I said when it was my chance to introduce myself. "I'm from Jordan. Before Jesus called me, I was a Muslim." I shared my story with them, including how I collapsed, how I saw hell, how Jesus showed me heaven, and how he called me to spread his message. Some of them nodded, while others wept as they listened. "Kamal, that's amazing," Sarah said. "You are now our brother." I felt so loved and accepted when Michael, the group leader, put his hand on my shoulder and prayed for me. They became my new family. People that prayed with me, understood my faith, and supported my development. Every week we would get together to sing songs, read the Bible, and tell tales. And I began to feel more capable of carrying out Jesus' instructions. I knew I had to start here in the Netherlands because Jesus had commanded me to spread his message. At the university, I noticed a lot of Muslim students who were similar to me in that they were trying to fit in but felt empty on the inside. I wanted them to know that I was at peace. I struck up conversations with some of them, including Ali and Mohammed, who I knew from my engineering classes. Although I was first afraid, I would invite them to grab coffee and we would sit in the campus cafe while the aroma of espresso filled the air. "Can I tell you something?" I would ask, then tell you my story. How could Jesus save me after I witnessed hell? How did I find tranquility? With wide eyes, they would listen, occasionally posing queries such as, "How about Islam? How about the Quran?" I would explain to them what Jesus, etched down to his guest room, demonstrated to me. How come I never found serenity in my prayers to Allah? How did Jesus' love work? In my dorm room, I organized a small Bible study group consisting of Muhammad, Ali, and myself. "Kamal, this is dangerous," they said in fear at first. "What happens if someone discovers?" However, I would read the Bible and pray with them. They also began to open up with time. Ali was the first person to sacrifice himself for Jesus. "Kamal, I want this," Ali remarked in tears one evening after we read about Jesus pardoning the sinful woman. "I share your sense of emptiness. Jesus is what I desire." His face was filled with serenity as we prayed together and he embraced Christ. I was so glad to see Jesus acting through me that I wept with him. It wasn't all simple, though. When they learned about my club, a few Muslim students became irate. I was crossing campus one day when I was stopped by a man named Khaled, whom I had known from a math class. He was with some guys and they were all looking at me as if I had done something awful. "Kamal, we've heard you're attempting to convert Muslims. Khalid said. "You're inciting hatred and urging people to abandon Islam. That is incorrect." My voice trembled as I attempted to explain. "I don't propagate hatred. I'm telling it like it is. I was saved by Jesus. All I want is for everyone to know him." Khaled, however, took a step forward and spoke quietly. "Kamal, you are a traitor. You are being reported to the university by us." My hands were shaking as I walked away, my heart sinking. I received an email from the university's student relations office a few days later. They summoned me to a meeting, stating that several kids had charged me with attacking Muslims and inciting hatred. "We support religious freedom, but we can't have you causing trouble," remarked the stern, glasses-wearing woman in the office. "You risk losing your scholarship if this keeps up." I was terrified. I might lose everything now that I've put so much effort into getting here. However, I recalled what Jesus had said, "I'll accompany you." That evening, I prayed for courage and resolved to continue speaking my beliefs, even if it meant jeopardizing my scholarship. I was unable to stop. Jesus had to be known to far too many people. Then one night, I received a call from my best friend in Jordan, Yusuf. My phone rang when I was having a homemade sandwich in my dorm. I was glad to hear from him, so I answered when I read his name. However, he spoke quietly, like if he were afraid. "I have horrible news, Kamal. Your father is ill," he said. "He's in the medical facility. He had a cardiac issue. It's serious, according to the physicians." He's still furious, even though he's asking for you. He keeps claiming that you are the cause of his illness and that you have embarrassed the family. "And the mosque leaders, they're spreading lies about you," Yusuf said after pausing. "They claim that you have abandoned them. You are an embarrassment to Islam. To ensure that everyone in the neighborhood despises you and your parents, they are telling everyone." "Kamal, it's horrible." My sandwich fell to the floor as my heart fell. In order to tell my father that I still loved him and to ask for his forgiveness, I wanted to return to see him. I knew that wasn't safe, though, not when the leaders of the mosque are causing turmoil. I was caught between my former life in Jordan, where my parents were suffering because of me, and my new life in the Netherlands, where I was free to serve Jesus. I prayed in a whisper, "Please assist my father, Jesus. Assist my parents in locating you. Tell me what to do." I knew I needed to continue spreading the love of Jesus and have faith that he will transform my family's hearts. I was sitting at my desk with my laptop open in my tiny Amsterdam, Netherlands dorm room. It was late at night, and except from the distant laughter of a few students, the campus was silent outside my window. My room had a bed with a blue blanket, a desk full of books and empty coffee cups, and a little crucifix that my Christian student club had given me on the wall. Beside me, my Bible was open. The sites cautioned about the extent to which I had been reading. My father's illness, the lies of the mosque head, and all the Muslim students I had been speaking to had been on my mind a lot. I had a great desire to tell the world about my experience of finding peace in Jesus, to connect with people who could be experiencing the same sense of emptiness as I was. I made the decision to film a video that I could share online for everyone to watch. I was anxious since I had never done this before, but I felt compelled by Jesus to do it. I took a big breath, switched on my laptop camera, and adjusted the brightness so that my face wasn't too dark. My voice was a little unsteady when I initially started talking. I looked into the camera and stated, "My name is Kamal Hassan. I'm from Amman, Jordan, and I'm 25 years old. I used to be a Muslim who was brought up to observe all of Islam's laws, including praying 5 times a day and fasting during Ramadan. I made a lot of effort to be a good Muslim, please Allah, and please my parents. However, I felt empty on the inside and always worried that I wasn't good enough. I was anxious and constantly worried about everything, even my beliefs and grades. With my pulse pounding, I would lie in bed at night and ask Allah if he saw me, if he was concerned, but I never heard back, only nothing. I stopped, my throat constricted, and continued, Then one day I passed out in a man on the street. I was under stress from an exam, fasting, and the heat. I died for a few minutes after hitting my skull. Hell was visible to me. There, I saw myself burning, my worry consuming me and keeping me from ever finding calm. I noticed Sheikh Ahmed, an Imam from my mosque, yelling that he was not saved by the regulations. He warned me that if I didn't discover the truth, I would also wind up there. I was terrified that I had failed my parents, Allah, and myself, and that I would be there forever. With a firmer voice, I wiped a tear from my eye. Then Jesus appeared to me. He emerged in a radiance that drove the shadows away. I died for you, Kamal, to give you peace and eternal life, he told me, displaying his scars, his nails, and the spear at his side. He transported me to heaven, a lovely location featuring a city of gold, a garden, and a stream. There I ran across my grandfather, who I had assumed was a devout Muslim, but who secretly believed in Jesus. Jesus revealed to me that I couldn't be saved by my Islamic beliefs, that my restrictions, fasting, and prayers were all in vain, since they were unable to connect with God. Your efforts cannot save you, he remarked. My grace alone can. The only path to real serenity is via me. With my heart full, I leaned closer to the camera. I was shown 2 futures by Jesus. In the first, I continued to practice Islam, and I ended up in hell again, my soul tormented, my parents crying at my burial and accusing me of failing them. In the other, I discovered serenity by following Jesus. I pictured myself smiling, anxiety-free, supporting my parents, and spreading the love of Jesus to others. I observed others listening and experiencing the same calm that I did. I am the way, the truth, and the life, Jesus declared to me. He asked me to be his light in the dark and to speak his truth. With firm hands, I inhaled deeply. I knew I had to follow Jesus when I woke up in the hospital. However, it wasn't simple. My folks were unable to comprehend. My father became so enraged that he referred to me as an apostate, claimed that I would embarrass our family. I was given the opportunity to study engineering in the Netherlands on a scholarship, which allowed me to be free and develop my faith. However, my father warned me that I would die if I went. I knew Jesus was with me, so I came anyhow. I moved to Amsterdam after leaving behind everything I knew, including my parents and home. I grinned, pondering my new life. I've met a new family here, Christians who care about me and join me in prayer. They embraced me like a brother when I joined one of the university's student organizations. I began reading the Bible and watching praise music, sermons, testimonies, and Christian YouTube channels. I felt so at ease and so near to Jesus. After telling other Muslim students my story, I formed a Bible study club. Some of them paid attention when I told them how Jesus had saved me and brought me peace. Some, like my friend Ali, even sacrificed their lives for Jesus. He said, "Kamal, I feel free for the first time." I was so glad to see Jesus acting through me that I wept with him. My eyes began to well up with tears and my voice became solemn. It's not all simple, though. When some Muslim pupils learned, they became irate. "I'm spreading hate, trying to convert people," they said when they reported me to the university. The university contacted and threatened to take away my scholarship if I continued to cause difficulties. Despite my fear, I can't stop. I must continue because Jesus called me to. Depression spread his love. It's even worse back in Jordan. My dad is ill. He has a cardiac condition and is in the hospital. According to my friend Youssef, he's requesting me, but he's still furious, accusing me of bringing dishonor to the family and being the cause of his illness. The authorities of the mosque are circulating false information about me, calling me a shame, and ensuring that my parents and I are despised. Although it's not safe, I want to return to visit my father and tell him how much I love him. Not quite yet. I spoke in a hopeful tone while staring directly into the camera. I want you to know Jesus, which is why I'm sharing this. The only path to real peace is via him. According to the Bible, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. The realization of that fact transformed my life. Call out to Jesus if you're feeling empty, or if you're afraid like I was. He is awaiting your arrival. Your heart is visible to him, like Deborah had informed me in Jordan. He adores you, regardless of where you're from or what you've done. With my hands clasped together, I concluded with a prayer. Jesus, please have an impact on everyone's hearts who is watching. Express your love and tranquility to them. My father needs to be healed. Soften his heart. Assist my parents in locating you. Give me the courage to continue speaking your truth. Amen. With a heart full, I grinned and asked, will I make amends with my father? Will Jesus be found by my family? I trust Jesus, but I'm not sure yet. Tell your tale in the space provided below. I would adore hearing it. With trembling hands, I halted the recording and uploaded the footage to the internet. I felt both anxious and liberated, as like I was carrying out Jesus' will. With my heart pounding, I reclined in my chair and muttered, "Thank you, Jesus." My phone buzzed with a message as I was about to shut off my laptop. Deborah, a Christian friend of mine in Jordan, sent it. With eager eyes, I opened it and read what she had to say. I have told your story here at the university, Kamal. A few pupils are inquiring about Jesus. When you return, they want to greet you. Thanks to you, they are beginning to look for the truth. But exercise caution. The officials of the Mozzies are still upset and keeping an eye on your family. My heart pounded with both terror and delight. Knowing that my story was reaching Jordanians and that I was influencing students to seek Jesus made me very joyful. However, my father and I were afraid to return with the mosque leaders still causing trouble. Would I ever get his forgiveness? Will Jesus be found by him before it's too late? I realized that no matter what, I had to continue spreading the love of Jesus. I prayed again in a whisper. Please, Jesus, keep my family safe. Bring more people to you by using me. Even though the road ahead was difficult, I knew I was on the correct track and felt his serenity once more.